Idaho Youth Ranch is an organization that has more than 6 decades of experience meeting the needs of Idaho's most vulnerable youth and families, particularly those youth that have experienced some level of trauma in their lives. Idaho Youth Ranch actually started as the ranch in Rupert, and from there it grew and has had a lot of different programs and services over the years. Currently, the services we provide are residential shelter. We run the only crisis residential shelter for youth in the Treasure Valley, and that provides a safe place for kids, runaway, homeless, kids that are being victimized. And then we also provide adoption services. We got into that in the early 80s, provide that in the state. We provide significant outpatient therapeutic programs. So that would include traditional therapy with youth and families, as well as some of our signature therapy modalities like equine therapy. We have hundreds of youth go through our job training program every year. So we train young people for career development. And then we support our alumni, people that have come through our programs before. We provide services to them. And the other thing, and the thing we're most well known for, is our thrift stores. We have 24 thrift stores that operate all throughout Idaho. The majority are in the Treasure Valley. And those thrift stores are actually mission locations. There's incredible mission work with youth happening in those stores, as well as partnering with the community in general to provide our services. We strengthen our community by serving the needs of those kids who have really fallen through the safety nets. I mean, there's not a lot of other folks left to catch kids when they get to Idaho Youth Ranch and we serve them. One of the things that makes Idaho Youth Ranch special is just our history. I mean, we are so Idaho. And we were founded in Idaho 67 years ago by Reverend Crow and his wife Ruby, and since then have been serving the kids and families here. That's just such a privilege to be able to keep doing that. I think the biggest success story of this year I would share is, when this pandemic hit, who would have predicted all of this? And I think the biggest success of the organization has been that we really made a decision that we were not going to be back on our heels, that we actually were going to be on our toes. And the first thing we did was we said, we're going to keep every one of our programs open and running. And that in itself was a huge success. We were able to keep our shelter open, all of our therapeutic services open, and indeed we were able to pivot within 10 days for our outpatient therapy and start telemental health. The greatest success of that was it actually spread our services throughout the state. So now folks anywhere in Idaho can receive our telemental health services, and we've had referrals in the first 3 months from over half of Idaho's counties. Probably the most meaningful one for me in the last couple months was the call we got from Interfaith Sanctuary when the schools decided to go all virtual. And the executive director, Jody, called and said, we are in crisis mode. We don't know how we're going to have a space for these kids to learn. And underprivileged and lower income youth tend to fall behind more quickly in school. And we knew that would be a tragedy. So within about 72 hours, we were able to work with them and transition our crisis shelter for youth into a day learning center for all of the homeless youth that were at Interfaith Sanctuary. So it just created an incredible collaboration with all of the kids that are living with their families in a hotel during this crisis. And then those youth were able to use all of our other services, all of our therapeutic services and our equine therapy and things like that. So that's probably the most exciting success of the last few months. It was great to get Carrie Lynn's phone call. I was at the ranch where we are building our new residential center to bring the Idaho Youth Ranch itself back to Idaho. And Carrie Lynn called and mentioned this to me, and we just started chatting. And I'm sure she had about 2 minutes blocked out to tell me this news. We ended up talking for about a half an hour. And part of that was that so much has changed since last January and February. So much exciting stuff in the midst of this pandemic. And I think it was just really fun to share that and also hear the great stories of the other organizations you all are supporting. We plan to use these funds to help cover the costs of our new bilingual therapist that will serve all of Treasure Valley, but primarily Canyon County. Canyon County is a heavily underserved area. They have a large Latino, Hispanic population, and most of the young people in that population actually speak English, but many of their parents don't. And so our therapeutic services, to be of the most benefit, it's great when we can also talk with the parents, right, and be working with the families. So our bilingual counselor is reaching out so that we can do that with more and more kids. We have many populations that are underserved, and they're underserved for different reasons. And sometimes it's just awareness of resources available to them. Idaho has one of the highest rates. Matter of fact, it's second highest in the country, the rate of kids living in households where mental illness is present. And we have one of the lowest rates of youth and families getting the mental health care they need. And oftentimes our underserved populations are because the parents don't know what the resources are. In the case of monolingual Spanish speakers, many of these parents whose kids speak English may not know the resources available to them. And so for us to be able to have a bilingual therapist that can do outreach in the community and communicate directly with the parents in their native language will ultimately get the help to the kids that they need. And that's what I'm most excited about.